The houses had tags on them, something that ZAKA hasn't seen yet. Half of their psyche simply couldn't take it. More precisely, there are shots of what you filmed or your cameraman who got into this film. Yes, I know that for sure. There were houses that burned down completely. When were the most terrible, the most terrible houses where I came in. You heard and we filmed. What do you think this is? I didn't think how terrible it was. Following the Black Angels of ZAKA, photographer Eduard Stern. Look, I've been following your online posts. We haven't seen each other for a long time, and as far as I understand, that is exactly what I wanted to talk to you about. From the first day of the war, yes, I don't know exactly what date you started doing that, but you will tell me right now, you found yourself in places of this very terrible tragedy of October 7th. And as far as I understand, you were with a team of photographers, yours or not. What kind of photography team was it? You have a month or two, it seems like 3 or 4 months. You went and took pictures and notes. So the question is, what was it? How did you end up on this team? Who hired you? What were your goals? And how much time did you really spend there? I'll start from the end, that is count by days. I haven't counted it specifically, but I can count more than 3 weeks. Not from day one. From the second day, we started to simply go to the soldiers. Do you remember the studio we're in now? It was closed for more than 3 months. And on the third day, it became a base where they brought everything for the soldiers, and we started volunteering. Helmets, body armor, and everything else was there. Studio, warehouse, and we delivered it. Literally, on the third or fourth day, we went to the soldiers. Feed the soldiers, give the soldiers something to drink, buy various things, but that's another topic. Much has already been said about this, a lot has been said about this. Especially now, some home front staff say that nothing is needed. And now they started saying again that nothing is needed. Hand over this, hand over that, but nothing has changed yet. And the soldiers don't have half of the things they need. There's a lot that has been purchased. As for filming, I was approached immediately from 2 locations. I can name one, but not the other. They called me and said they needed help. The one you can name, who is it? It is the Ministry of Defense. It is officially the Ministry of Defense. The Ministry of Defense called you? Yes, Ministry of Defense, the guys who work with the Ministry of Defense. Because there was a serious problem with the documentation. What does that mean? There's such word as tiyuk. In Hebrew, literally means filing, or something where you need everything documented, is particularly the work that a forensic expert does. Only a forensic expert is a specialist, forensic expert photographer, I would emphasize. He's a specialist with an education who can do certain things, take pictures and the like. We were contacted because the guys who were supposed to film everything there, we have very few of them. These are war photographers, or those are the ones that are on the regular army duty. First of all, they didn't learn how to film it either. They learned to film the training, they learned to take pictures of the brave soldiers, they learned to film reward ceremonies. There are a couple of people in the army, in the department, who they're filming closed-door footage for special forces, internal footages, you understand, and some of them are then shown with their faces blurred and so forth. It needed to be recorded. It was necessary to record all the atrocities that occurred. For what? First of all, specifically for future court proceedings. Second, evidence. As they immediately thought, then, in order to file a lawsuit in The Hague or something else, that is, then it was not definitely known for what, but documenting house by house, place by place, crime after crime that took place. That is, the photographer and the videographer went as a team. There were 6 such teams. Some days there were 8 teams. This is a 2-people team. We went into house after house where everything took place, and they recorded it. We recorded everything, started from the very beginning. And when you go there, you see the whole story. This is, you record the whole story. There is a front door that is broken. Here are the bullets. Can I bring you back a little bit? I really want the whole story of how you started doing this. You said there are photographers in the army. Yes. Why didn't they do this? There weren't enough of them? Did they need more people? Why did they contact you? I don't want to tell you any incorrect information. I know information from 3 people. It varies from person to person, and I don't want the army later to say that this wasn't true and this wasn't. The man from the government security told me a simple thing. These are young guys. I know these guys. I've crossed paths with them when I shot the commercials for the army. They're conscripts as a rule. Plus, there are guys, girls, wonderful guys who suddenly found themselves filming, well, let's say horror films, to put it mildly. They simply couldn't take it anymore. So they couldn't stand it? They refused? No, I wouldn't say they refused. I know some weren't able to. Some continued, but you understand, this is classified information with the army who is with them. I know that there are several. Yes, I know specifically that several still aren't able to recover. That is 10 months later, already 11. What's the difference? If it keeps haunting me. I didn't sleep at all for a couple of months after that. Now I started to sleep a little more, but this is coming back. What difference does it make when it comes to you in memory? You were hired like for a job? No, I was asked to film as a volunteer. So it's free. It's free. And then the other team gave us very small sums of money, a completely different team. They gave us pennies officially, enough to cover gasoline and the like. That is 70% of the project is volunteer work. And what day did you go there? After the 7th, how long did it take you to get there? I can clarify for you. You need to look, but it took me about a week. A week later, you were there? The first filming for the state security was classified less than a week, less. They removed the bodies, ZAKA did. They removed the bodies. ZAKA is a service that deals with the bodies, right? How to say it correctly in Russian? They are locally called Black Angels. They deal with bodies, that is, first of all, everything related to religion, to the Jewish religion. If you remember or know that in the case of a terrorist, for example, we need to collect every last piece of a Jewish body, but not only Jewish, because they gather terrorist bodies as well, and clothes, but the Jewish blood must be collected to the last drop and buried and removed. And the first guys who went there were ZAKA. They were the ones who came in with the troops, that is the first ones. The guys who came in, it was them. How many people were on your team? This is not my team. Who are these people? These are volunteers. And then photographers that agreed were hired for the second project. They were hired, but it's not like they were getting paid anything. They were getting enough money to cover gasoline, practically pennies. The people who agreed to go to take photos and videos, there were a couple of them who I invited for 1 day, some for 2, and they couldn't do it anymore. But this is not my team. If we're talking about my people, then I had 4 of them there that I brought with me, who were there from the beginning and practically survived till the end. Could you imagine what you would be faced with, that you would encounter when you agreed to it? No. You didn't even think about it? No. I didn't know how terrible it would be. What was the first place you went to? Where did you start working? Kibbutz Be'eri. Straight from the Kibbutz Be'eri, yes, from the first houses, the most terrible ones. We came to Kibbutz Be'eri to film. Well, they gave us body armor, they gave us helmets. This same body armor, yes, we had them first, the terrible armor that the soldiers are so nervous about, made out of lead, weighing 18 kilograms. And when we started filming there were shootouts still going on. That is the line was shot through, and there were bulldozers. behind the fence that was there, which broke through everything. Army bulldozers rolled up an earthen wall. You understand, like the earthen ditch that was higher than the houses, so that you know it's not just you there. The soldiers were based there, who were going to attack and then retreat. Here they were resting. That is, they made it to, improvised well. That's right, that is an earthen ditch, which was somewhere around 5 to 7 meters. So there would not be direct hit, because the shooting was here and there, because there still did. So really, did the bullets reach you? Look, the fact that there were mortar attacks, there were constant, because the first thing we got were commands, and don't be heroes, guys, it's about to happen, a siren. But it won't help you much. You have 7 minutes, so we do understand that you're photographers, no need to be heroes. That is where you stand and fall, so you don't have time, really. There you understand, again, these people, the residents of the kibbutz, that is the bomb shelter everywhere, in the house, playgrounds are covered, they made a video there then. All right, but you really don't have time to make it. This is the situation that existed during the first week. Then it became a little calmer. We were under constant shelling. That is, there was shelling when we were driving, because when you drove there, you didn't drive independently. You arrived on a certain intersection. From a certain intersection, which we were transferred to, 4 to 5 cars were the state security vehicles. In the front and back were our army jeeps. Then, yes, we were driving the first days. It's called the terrible road of death, where all of these burnt cars' bodies were found during the first days. Cars of the innocent people that were shot at. Yes, this is the road. And you saw these cars, or have they already been dismantled? No, I saw these cars. The fact is that I had seen these cars before. What I said, what I filmed for other services, I saw these cars, I saw the bodies of terrorists that have not yet been removed. It's on the 7th? Well, it's on the 9th, the 10th. All of that is before the main trip. Were you there, let's say, on any other trip before? Yes, yes. And you saw all this? Yes, yes. Our bodies weren't there, our bodies were removed by ZAKA, collected everything, but the bodies of these subhumans were still laying around. And your trips with your team, they were every day, and how many hours did you do this? Or was it 24/7? No, it wasn't 24/7, because that is since we are still civilians. Even though many of us have permits. What is it called? Well, for weapons? No, to access the classified, to film the classified and the like. That is, anyway, they can't keep you there. That is, we left the house from there. That is, from Tel Aviv Center at 5 a.m., started there at 4:30. We left before dawn, met at the kibbutz. And at the intersection at 5:30, the guys who are religious, by the way, they have become even more religious. Everyone put on tefillin, prayed, and were on their way. And we were there until dark. An hour before dark, the guys from the state security asked us to leave. That is, for now, it's daylight, and you can control the situation. During the first few days, for now, the cleanup was still underway. We had to leave before, we were just arriving in the car, just as it was getting dark. And a couple of times we didn't make it. What does that mean? We were just leaving the kibbutz. We started leaving. Everyone got into their cars. And these idiots started shelling the kibbutz. In the first few days, there was intense, massive shelling. And we waited until the shelling stopped, at which time the team received an order, now you can go. Because the road turned out to be the most shelled one. That is, the kibbutz is safer, there are people there in the bomb shelter and everything. And staying in the car in the field, well, let's be realistic. They had a field there, and all these fields near the kibbutz, there were a good aim already. The Nukba Special Forces are professional killers who hated them. And residents of Gaza who came in slippers to plunder terribly, which, while the fighting was still going on, carried out of houses everything, including refrigerators. Refrigerators that were carried out to the other side of Gaza. They dragged it into Gaza, yes. because we photographed the refrigerators outside. The refrigerators were taken out. The refrigerators and various things like that. You understand? That is, there were houses that were completely all turned upside down. That is, they burst in and did everything there. There were houses where everything was on the tables. That is, there were most terrible houses. That was the same kibbutz. Do you know what a kibbutz is? Yes, kibbutz is a collective farm, figuratively. Large commune private houses. You understand that everywhere, but in the kibbutzim, people, more often, I also have friends in the kibbutzim, and the kibbutzim people get up very early. Not all, but they get up very early. What am I getting at? There were houses where we went into, and probably the most scary picture was there were breakfasts on the table. Well, not the most, but scary. That is, you come to a house in which there has been no one for 7, 8, 10 days, and there's breakfast on the table. So you understand what he looks like, scary and the like. But the people were getting ready for breakfast. Some were sleeping, some were getting ready for breakfast. That is, they broke into the houses and robbed them. That is, you see all this. That is, house after house, you see different situations. We approached the house and took pictures. First looked over the exterior of the house. That is, you understood right away. Windows, doors, windows. That is, you're just like a forensic expert, step by step, carefully, without skipping. Here you can see that they shot with an RPG straight into the salon. That is a huge gap. Then you go into the house, you see that this whole salon burned down. And you see that it burned out. You see who died there, if it's visible. You walk through the house, you see that if the people were in a bomb shelter room, if they remained intact, the doors intact. That is, there were such houses where people sat for 7, 8, 9 hours defending themselves, holding the door from the inside of the bomb shelter. Then our people came in late at night. The next day, people were taken out. People were taken to Tel Aviv. They are here. But firstly, it was mainly the heads of families who came. Sometimes the father, they came to help sometimes. Sometimes they came to testify, to help. In what sense? He said that is the house where 5 people, in his house 3 people. There were houses that burned down completely with people inside them. And the neighbor says, in this house, like so and so, in this one so, in here, from this side like this. Besides, the most important thing, there were the military, what is called investigators. And they told them who lived there, where they were from when they came to attack. And the kibbutzniks all know each other, all the generations. Know who, where, why, who left, who was lucky and who weren't. In one kibbutz, the old people got lucky. I'll say the old people, those that were as children in the ghetto. Well, that is the Second World War. They were abroad. They weren't there. They came back the next day, a day later. I spoke to them. There was a whole group, and those who didn't go, they all died. How many houses did you go to? I can't tell you from memory, so I won't lie to you. So many. 100? Yes. What have you seen probably for which you weren't most definitely not ready? If you can share such stories. Well, without mentioning the people with whom I was talking, by the way, they told us not to bother them too much, only if they themselves want to speak. So, well, I'll skip that. There were marks on houses. There were marks on houses from ZAKA, where the murders were carried out and the bodies were taken away, and where the blood was cleaned and were not. But special marks we had to know. Red circle, yellow circle, black circle. It is so cynical, someone later said, you have to designate people with circles. Well, how you need to create a marking system of some sort so that people have to do their job and they know what they're doing. And that is what ZAKA did later when they came to clean up blood from furniture and from everything to bury. And entering into one house, there were several such houses. Entering into one house, we knew that we were told that this family member was kidnapped there. These were murdered. And you go filming. You get there, you have to go into the next room. You can't go into it because the door burnt out completely. And in what sense? Because it's a concrete door. They were able to open it. They set fire to the bomb shelter room. And we had to testify that they threw something into it, or like maybe grenades. There is something happened that they discovered that there is an armored window. That is, they scorched it, and you had to climb through this window inside to take pictures of the burnt mattresses, the burnt bedroom. And when you started walking on the mattress, you realized that you were walking on a skeleton. Well, we called ZAKA, and you know what happened next. I'm sorry, do I understand it correctly? Something ZAKA hasn't seen yet. Was it discovered by you? Yes, that was the situation. You understand that statistics are changing. That is already not a kidnapped person as they thought. But what? That is, the first day there was no accurate information of how much, why, what for. We filmed a couple of more houses that burned down. And I think you heard, and many others heard. Then a group came. They arrived already alongside us. Sifters. You've heard of this band? Yes, I have. This group came when we were there already for 4 to 5 days. I can't tell the exact day. That is just to clarify who those people are, who sifters are. Well, sifters is a slang which people gave it among themselves. The authorities turned to the guys from the Institute of Archaeology. That is, forensics experts contacted, or the army, that is. I don't want for someone in the commentaries later to say, but the state has contacted the Institute of Archaeology, called archaeologists, to sift through all of these ashes that we walked on, filmed, because they began to understand that there were completely burned out people from whom it was completely impossible to collect the DNA and the like. And there is everything burnt out so much, so into dust, roughly speaking. And these guys were the ones who work on excavations. They came with these sieves, and they sifted through all the ashes, the pebbles, and through all of that. Has anyone found a pair, what are they called? Now you tell me. Crowns. Here I have, not crowns, but metal pins, implants. That is their task, to find at least something in order to find DNA. When they found one implant, and you can use the implant to find DNA. We have implants, as it were, from 2, 3, 4 firms, 5 firms. Doctors understand the subject. That's why they could find it. They found remains, micro remains of bones. And from these micro remains of bones, they tried from super burned bones, get DNA. and there were accusations. We came with one man, it doesn't matter who. We approached the house to take pictures, and he says, "Wait, can I go in first?" He had just arrived for the first time to see the house. He came in first and then called us. And he said, here was the living room, and here was the headquarters, and here we were hiding, and here were the terrorists sitting in our living room for half a day, because we were hiding behind the door holding onto it, and I heard them all the time, and he speaks Arabic fluently because he's been working with them for 25 years. And he knew the other families, and he brought them money, and he helped them, and they drove their children. And he heard the voices of those same people who brought them there. He brought them, those who worked for them. Good Ahmed, good Suleima, good the one who specifically they brought to kill those for whom they worked. Specifically, they first brought them to those houses that were in each kibbutz has a self-defense unit. And those who worked in the kibbutzim, good Arabs, good, yes, they passed on information to Nukba, and they passed it on. There were guys who are part of self-defense. Nukba fighters first went to them because they could have resisted. Yes, I heard about that too. You heard, but we filmed. We went up to houses where you can see everything. That is where the self-defense fighters shot back. You can just see everything. And he shot back from the children's room from the second floor because the mosquito net is torn out. You can see right onto the house opposite the bullet that he defended himself. Then the fight moved downstairs into the living room, and he was killed at the entrance to the house, because there you see everything. But they went specifically to the houses that had self-defense fighters, because those were the ones who could put up the resistance. They went specifically to the center of the kibbutz. Each kibbutz has a cafeteria and headquarters and house of culture right in the center. And house of culture right in the center. You see that there were several battles precisely near the headquarters. Near the headquarters and the self-defense headquarters, because the guys from the kibbutz ran there. Why? Because the helmets were there. That's where the bulletproof vests were. We went into these rooms in several kibbutzim, the self-defense rooms. And in the back of the rooms, there were all these bulletproof vests still in place. They didn't take them. Did you have any thoughts about leaving all this time at some point? Not to come back to take pictures and record? Yes. What day did that happen? On the 3rd. On the 2nd, 3rd. When the most terrible, I went into the most scary houses. How did you overcome this? How did you go further? Don't know. I won't tell you now, even a year later, I'm such a hero. No way. But you could have refused. Yes, we were told the same thing every day the same thing. Even in the morning when we arrived at this intersection, two nth comrades, two military men, nth comrades, fine, nth not military, in civilian clothes for sure. They said, guys, you don't have to go. If you feel unwell there and so on, you can come back. You can always use these cars, headquarters, come sit down and just don't continue. But it's better if you see that if you feel bad and it's hard, do it now. No one will accuse you. Well, because you know the teams split up in pairs, 2-2. That is, they went out in pairs, photos and videos, yes. And you understand if one person in a couple, and it did happen, leaves, it is for these reasons that happened. Yes, for no any other reason. Yes, it was physically very, very hard. You are in a bulletproof vest and a helmet all day, and I feel it in my back still. I still have it to this day. But as you understand, physically it's very hard, but it's harder emotionally than physically. It's always harder emotionally than physically. But I'm talking about myself, not for everyone else. Did you count how many shots you took in total? You specifically documented it. I can't tell you for one simple reason, not because I don't want to tell you. For many, many days, we filmed how? I didn't watch it till the end. I'll explain it to you frame by frame. That is, in the morning you receive cards, memory cards. The memory cards that are opened in front of you are new and sealed. You film with them, and in the evening, they take it from you and seal it in an envelope. And so you didn't take them with you, you couldn't copy them. No, it's important because I wouldn't have thought of that. That is, at the end of the day, or as soon as you finish, yes, at the end of the day, does the army take it? Nth people. Not even the army. Even the military men who approached us had no permission to see some of the things we have seen. That is always the case in such a situation. Guys, the reservists who were there, right, those who served there, tried to take pictures with the phone. And we were even told, you see, the reservists who started taking photos, as ugly as it sounds, cut them off. And if they don't want to listen, you have a radio for that. Call us. And did you sign any non-disclosure documents or something else? With one office, yes. With the other two, no. What, if anything, you can say? What about, let's skip it. Let's skip it, okay. We have a democracy. The Knesset has Arab representation, specifically Arab Knesset representatives. Came to see any of this? Yes, listen, by the way, I saw it by chance. I'm not an expert on every single one of them, 120 of them. But we do have Arab MPs. We have a couple of famous ones. Have you seen? I saw it by accident, I don't remember. We have one of those stocky ones, not TB. There was another one. How did they behave? You know, I saw him and he walked around in shock. I won't say he went around smiling, he walked around in shock. He wasn't showing off, he was walking around in shock. He walked around, he was interested, he walked up to the soldiers. He was very depressed there, by the way. He was one who, let's use the phrase, attacked by the soldiers. You know, the same question you ask me, how do they react? He was in shock. It was obvious that he was in shock. He was very disturbed. He, again, has all the assistants, too, who are trilingual, all the Arab MPs, people who speak fluent Arabic. That is not surprising, and they were all in shock. Well, and then if we jump ahead from where we were filming, and not only we weren't the only ones filming, that is a film that can be shown, a film that is still kept classified. But they showed parts of it in Knesset. Did you take part in it? Are there any parts in the film that you or your cameraman had filmed that had made it into the film? Yes, I know that for sure. Can you tell me which scenes there were? Well, the scenes of completely burned houses. where children were murdered, burned children's rooms completely. That is, children's rooms where they simply went in and threw a grenade into a children's bedroom. If we had started showing all these burned children's rooms during the first days, we might have reached more people. Do you think we should have done this? To the world community who still doesn't believe any of it. Yes. Should we have done this? Yes. Then if we're talking about a classified film, there are disagreements. There's a classified film I haven't seen it at all. I'll tell you, even if I saw the film in its entirety, it's still only 50%. The worst parts are still cut out. I actually saw a few clips of this film. It so happened it was shown to me. It was impossible to watch till the end, especially that there were scenes from the body cameras of terrorists. Horrible footage that doesn't circulate on the internet. And yet there's a dispute about whether the film should be given wide access to the world community. And in regards to the information war, I would say blocking the pro-Israel information that they don't see, should it be shown to them? Do you think it's worth it? Would that have any influence? I think if half of the sane people, I'm not saying, but half of those who scream from the river to the sea, among those there is 50% who just scream in a crowd, 100%. If only some of them would sit down in the evening for a beer and whatever else, that progressive European youth, something would have skipped a beat inside them, and they would sit down to watch it. Of them, another 25% would reconsider the situation and would start looking at it differently, and it would have produced results. But we do not show the film. What results do you think it would have been? There would be less anti-Semitism. 50 years, 70 years, many Europeans still go to Auschwitz and watch the film Schindler's List, and afterwards they go into Wikipedia and places like that, and again they go to see whether Schindler's Factory is real. No need to say, like everyone else said, oh, about the Germans, the burgers with their beer, the evil decaying West. There are a lot of sensible people out there, especially in the last 3 years, when the refugees began to cause lawlessness there in large European cities. Old native population began leaving, and they began to rethink. More people would start to rethink the situation. At a minimum, would start to think. Maybe not everything needs to be shown. Maybe some things need to be retouched. Shock therapy, of course, you know, is a sort of a science. And I probably have a final question for you. You talked a little bit about it at the beginning. It's already been 11 months soon. Do you dream about it? Do you have flashbacks? How often do you have that? Dreams about your 3 weeks there. Not dreams about my 3 weeks there, but about what I saw there. That's what I'm talking about. Do you dream? Often? It varies. Well, the dreams didn't go anywhere, and how do you deal with it? Just like that, I didn't know it would happen this way. This is how the residents of the kibbutz tried to barricade the door from the inside in order to protect themselves and their families from Hamas terrorists. Due to confidentiality, we're not able to discuss scenes with the deceased victims on camera. All photo and video materials in this interview have been supplied by Eduard and is allowed for public viewing. The entire world should see this interview, and you can help us accomplish this. Please subscribe to the channel and like the video. This will help us promote and advance the channel and the film. Am Israel Chai.